Hi everybody, it's Nikki here and welcome to a bookish video. So today's video is my March wrap up. So this is where I talk about all the books that I read in March. Now I'm sure you're wondering if I completed my March TBR. No, I did not. In fact, I don't think I actually read that many books from my original TBR. I read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 from the original 15. 8 out of 15 of that original TBR. Now, I read 16 books. Let's go straight into the stats. So I read a total of 16 books. So I actually read more books than was on my physical TBR from Bookgammon, my game that I played to choose my TBR. But I didn't read all the books that was on my TBR. Now you could say, well, you failed your TBR game then, but I don't think that. I'm a more positive person. I read 16 books and I enjoyed them. Sometimes it's okay to go off your TBR. That's why we have multiple books on our shelves, so we can do that. I blame Becca's Bookoplothon, but we'll get to that in a moment. The total pages of physical books that I read was 3,148 pages. The total audio hours of books that I listened to that I don't own a physical copy of was 47 hours and 39 minutes. That's an awful lot. And the total audio hours of books that I do own, but I chose to listen to the audiobook instead of reading them physically, was 28 hours and 16 minutes. So you can tell that I really did use my audiobooks in March. Total e-pages, none, 0. I am reading 0 ebooks at the moment, and I think that's been a trend for the last few months, and I need to read an ebook. I need to use my Kindle subscription because I'm seeing books that are on Kindle Unlimited that I want to read, but I can't read them because I can't save them to my tablet because it only allows me to keep 10 Kindle Unlimited books at one time, and until I've read one and returned it, I can't save another one. So I need to read some of my Kindle Unlimited books. On to genres. I read one of everything. Well, I read more than one of some things. So thrillers, I read 2 this month. Contemporaries, I read 2. Classics, I read 1. Non-fiction, I read 1. Middle grade, I read 4. Graphic novels, mangas, I read 1, and fantasy sci-fi, I read 5. So I read at least one thing from every genre. I am so happy about that. Many a month has gone by where I've had a couple of genres that didn't have anything read in them at all. My star ratings, I had 0 1 stars. We are having a really good year so far. We've had no 1 stars at all. But we did have 4 2 stars. I'll get into that. We had 6 3 stars, seems to be my go-to rating. We had 4 4 stars, and we had 2 5 stars. The author gender, we had 4 that were male and 12 that were female. The bindings of the physical books that I read was 7 were hardback and 5 were paperback. The format of the books that I read 9 physically, 7 audibly, and 0 e-bookily. The origins of the books that I read, 12 were owned by myself and 4 were borrowed. And we'll get to Book of the Month when I get to it. So, let's start off with some of the books, physical books that I read. So, Jade. This was on my Bookgammon TBR by Ruth Langan. This is a Mills and Boon historical romance. And when I picked this, I said that the romance in here would be Holdy Handy and Batty Eyelashy, because it's historical romance, because the last one I read that was in the historical romance Mills and Boon genre was exactly that. This one not so much. I should have been warned, because it deals with a young lady called Jade Jewel, whose visions of building a pleasure palace threatened the peace of the community. And the local vicar is kind of attracted to her. I should have known. It's the whore and the vicar story. It was a lot more than hand-holding and eye-batting, let's just say. I really enjoyed this. Normally I give these quite a low rating because they're just smutty Mills and Boon, but this one I gave a 3 stars. I really enjoyed this one. Let's go over to another small one. This is a point horror book, and this is Dream Date by Sinclair Smith. So I gave this one a 2 star. This was what I expect these to be, you know, typical 90s style sort of cheesy film kind of thing. And it was exactly that. Girl dreams of her dream guy, only to have him become her worst nightmare. I could see this being a Netflix film, like a teenage Netflix film, like, you know, like Scream and things like that. It's one of those kind of horrors that isn't actually horrific, it's just cheesy. But yeah, wasn't the greatest, gave it 2 stars. This next one, this was one of my 5 stars. I listened to the audiobook of Skullduggery Pleasant by Derek Landy. This is the first book in the series. I believe there's quite a few in this series, but I only have the first 3 in the trilogy, in the series. But there is more, because there's at least 5 on the back of here. This was so hilarious. I loved it. If you do get a chance to listen to the audiobook of this, I believe I listened to it on, was it on Scribd? I think it might have been Scribd. And I was giggling. I was giggling so much. But the sound effects on the audiobook as well, each kind of chapter kind of finished with like a tinkly music and then a kind of, it was atmospheric, it was funny, it was really intriguing. But yeah, I just really enjoyed it. It was so atmospheric. I gave it 5 stars. I loved it. Cannot wait to get on to the second book, really. I loved it. Kids would love this. If you have like a teenage boy or even a teenage girl who really likes like mystery thriller kind of books, this is a great one. By the way, Skullduggery Pleasant is a skeleton, and there are things to do with that, like how he can do things. Anyway, it was brilliant. I loved it. I loved it. Great. 5 stars. The next book was my buddy read, My Soul to Save, in the Soul Screamers series by Rachel Vincent. I'm buddy reading this first 3 books, at least, in the series with my good friend Charlotte. This dealt with selling your soul for rich and fame. And to be honest, both me and Charlotte were like, couldn't care less. We weren't as impressed with this one as we were with the first one. We both absolutely loved the first one. This one kind of went along a kind of moral kind of thing. And we've started book 3 now, and it feels like it's going to do the same thing. It feels like these books are trying to tell children or teenagers or whoever's reading them, look, there are some things you just don't do. And if you do them, bad things will happen to you. But they're putting it in a fantastical sort of setting. So I feel like they're kind of moral stories, and that's just not vibing with me and Charlotte at the moment. First book, great. Dealt with the banshee legend of them screaming for your soul as you die. And that was really interesting, learning about banshees. But now we're kind of Yeah, I'm not liking where the story is going as much as I enjoyed it in the first book. So I gave My Soul to Save 3 stars. The next book I read was Black Beauty. I'm not doing these in the order that I actually read them. I'm just pulling them off my pile. Black Beauty by Anna Sewell. This is, of course, one of the beautiful Bath Treasury of children's classics. And yes, Bex, you need to buy them. They're beautiful. I'm not an enabler at all. I will say, though, that if you have pets, they do collect hairs. So beware of that. This was a beautiful story. It was a simple story. And I know you're going to hate me for this rating, but I gave it 2 stars. And the reason why I gave it 2 stars was this was basically a how to and not to look after horses. So I think I confused the story of this with Warhorse. I was expecting Warhorse, and what I got was a manual on how to look after horses. Black Beauty is a horse that is born on a farm where the keepers of the horses, I don't know what you call them, stable hands, maybe, they look after horses well. They break in the horse well, they treat the horse well. And then he is sold to a family where he is also kind of treated okay, but there is another horse there that was reared on a farm where she wasn't treated well, and you get the story of how badly she was broken in when she was learning to take a rider, and how she learned to bite because that was the only way she protected herself, and it was because of her bad upbringing. And yeah, you just kind of felt this is what you should do with horses, and this is what you shouldn't do, because if you do that, then this happens to them. And yeah, I didn't feel like I got a story so much as a manual. So sorry, but I would like to read Warhorse. It is one of those books that does intrigue me. And maybe I'll get from Warhorse what I kind of was hoping to get from Black Beauty. It's a beautiful story, don't get me wrong, but it's one that I probably won't pick up again. And so it can't get more than a 3 stars for that fact alone. And then because horses is not something that I'm particularly drawn to, I will keep this book. I normally unhaul books that are rated 3 stars or less, but I will keep this one because it's beautiful, but I probably won't read it again. And so for that one, it has to get a 2 stars. That's how my ratings go. So I don't give 3 stars because it's a classic and everybody loves it. My rating is how I enjoyed it. And for me, this was a 2 stars. But for a horse lover, it would be amazing. I'll leave that book for later. Okay, so next one I read was, I'm just going to have to remind myself on this. Yes, Fable by Adrian Young. So this came in the mermaid box from Fairy Loot. I don't know if you can see it, but this is the card that came in the Fairy Loot box. It's got mermaids on it. I think the theme was under the sea or under the ocean or something like that. So I assumed, forgive me, but I assumed that this was a mermaid retelling, like a mermaid story. Ice cream van. She has red hair. Ariel. There is not a mermaid in sight. Please stop trying to clickbait me. I'm sick and tired of it. I'm sick and tired of being pulled into books that clickbait me into thinking that they're mermaid books, and then I read them and there's not a mermaid in goddamn sight. I did enjoy this. It is a good story. It's about a young girl who gets abandoned, basically, on an island by her father because her mother just died. Because of course. And then he basically tells her, you have to make it back to me and then I'll let you be part of the family again. Kind of thing. Yeah, nice bloke. So she spends her time on this island trying to survive, which she is alone on an island at a young age after having just lost her mother. And she is having to scramble and scavenge on an island where lots of people are trying to scavenge, and they will hurt you if you're on their patch. It's a dangerous environment for her to be in. And she manages to get a particular gem that is hard to get, and she sells it, and then she manages to escape on someone's boat, and they take her to where her father is. I know that there is a second book. It has come out. I did think about getting it. I probably will pick it up in the future. It's called Namesake. But I'm not in so much of a rush because I don't think it's got anything to do with mermaids, and that's why I read it. So I gave this one 4 stars. I did enjoy it, but there wasn't a mermaid in sight, and I'm really sick and tired of being clickbaited with mermaid books that don't end up being mermaids. But that's that. The next book. Okay, don't come for me. I read Hollowpox, The Hunt for Morrigan Crow, which is the 3rd book in the Nevermore series by Jessica Townsend. I do believe there are more books in this series to come. This was one of those books that is a stepping stone between books. Not much happened. She goes to a lot of classes that aren't actually classes, just memories, I want to say. I mean, that was interesting, the way that she attended these classes for being a Wondersmith. She's learning her Wondersmith magic. That might have been a spoiler. She goes to a lot of classes and yeah, not much happens. Like, I bought the hardbacks because the hardback is stunning. The hardbacks are beautiful. These are beautiful books, but I kind of wish I just bought the paperbacks because I'm not vibing with this series as much as I thought I would. So I gave this 3 stars. I think it's a very good stepping stone, but I wouldn't say that I'm excited to see what the next book brings, because I'm not. I will probably buy it because I'm a collector and I like to collect the pretty editions, but I kind of wish I'd waited for the paperbacks and got the paperbacks. So, okay, so I finally finished My Dark Vanessa. I listened to it on audio. It was very hard to listen to, but I finally did it. I finally got through it. This is a very hard-hitting contemporary. Do not pick this up unless you are ready for it. This will feel uncomfortable. You will squirm reading this. This deals very much with sexual abuse and grooming and manipulation, and it is so hard to read. I had originally read most of this. I only had about 130 pages left, but I had to DNF it last year because I just couldn't cope with it, and it put me in a massive slump for the rest of 2020. And the only reason why I got through it this month was because of the audiobook. But it did make for very uncomfortable listening. I had to partner this with a children's book because I needed that light and fluffiness to counteract the darkness and deepness of this. So many trigger warnings for this. Do not go into this unprepared at all. It's a book that needs to be written, and it's a book that needs to be read. But it is hard. It is damn hard. I kind of wish my daughter was a reader, because I would ask her to read this, because especially the younger generation, you know, young women and men, need to understand what manipulation and grooming looks like. Our main protagonist in this doesn't believe that she was groomed as a teenager by her school professor. She believes it was true love. She believes that their romance was real, and it's not until somebody else brings a case against him of abuse and sexual harassment that she begins to question her relationship. It is real hard to read, and I wish this, by the way, a 4 stars. It wasn't comfortable, and I don't want to say I enjoyed reading it, but it was a good book. It was well written. That's what I want to say. Okay, I'm also going to leave you. Okay, I'm gonna. Let's talk about Law by Alexander Bracken. Okay, so if you watched my Fairly unboxing of this, this is a book that we got in January's box, I want to say. I was deeply disappointed we didn't have Medusa's face on the front. We just got this creepy looking little eye in the O there. I'm deeply disappointed with the whole book, to be fair. Okay, let me put this into context. I started this on the Monday before Becca's Bookoplothon's 48-hour readathon weekend. So Becca's Bookoplothon happened on the 20th and the 21st of March. So I started this around about the 15th. Yeah, 15th of March. I did not finish this until the last day of March. I thought that I'll start this on the Monday, I would have it finished by the Friday in time for Becca's Bookoplothon. It did not happen. I only got halfway through. Those edges, by the way, are the best bit about the book. I only got halfway through. It was slow. It was uninteresting. Nothing to do with Medusa. I thought, okay, again, I thought with the big Medusa picture that you see on the main book, right? I thought, I'm getting annoyed here now. Chill, breathe. I thought that with the big picture of Medusa on the front, we were getting a story about Medusa. No. Medusa only appears, well, she doesn't even appear. She's not even a character in the book. She's on a shield that the bad guy is trying to find, but the good guys have hidden it. So Medusa isn't even a character in the book. So stop putting things on the front of books that aren't actually in the goddamn book. So I thought this was Medusa's story. It is not. It's not even a retelling. Like I say, I started this on the Monday before Bookoplothon, and I didn't finish it until the last day of the month. It took that long to read this 450-page book. It just didn't draw me in. It just didn't pull me in. It was just, if you're into gods and legends, maybe you might enjoy this more. But one YouTuber who I think a few of you may watch, Ashley from A Frolic Through Fiction, she is a massive fan of Greek gods and legends. That is her persona. That is her thing. Even she gave this a low rating. So that kind of tells you, you know, that this is not that great. I gave it a 2 stars. Before I get into the books that I read for Becca's Bookoplothon, let's go into the books that I kind of borrowed and I don't have a physical copy of. So I listened to Percy Jackson and the Last Olympian, which is book 5, the final book of the Percy Jackson series. I gave this 3 stars. I thought it was a good ending to the books. And yeah, I can't really remember what happened in there though. But I will say that I would happily pick up the whole Percy Jackson books again to reread in the future. I won't purchase them because I feel like the Percy Jackson books are always going to be in my local library. They're the kind of books that they're always going to have in stock. So I don't feel like I need to own my own physical copy of the Percy Jackson series. I mean, if I found them, the box set, for a reasonably good price, then I might pick them up. But for now, I know that I can just go to the library and pick them up and reread them anytime I like. And I probably would. For me, I'd say Percy Jackson was better than Harry Potter, but we'll leave it at that. The next book that I read that I don't have a physical copy was The Burning God, which is book 3 in the... what was the first book called? What was the first book called? I forget what The Burning God, first book. Poppy Wars. Was The Burning God, which is book 3 in the Poppy Wars trilogy by R.F. Kuang. I listened to the audiobook of that and I had the library book out from my local library. There was a lot of tiny battles in this one. It was like the aftermath of war and the kind of trying to clear out the smaller contingencies, is that the word? I have no idea. The smaller rabble of soldiers that were left in the land as the main army withdrew. And if you're into war and politics, then I can see the Poppy War being a great trilogy, but I'm not. War and politics is just not my thing. And this was very much the darker side of war. And the ending was a bit... I didn't like the ending. I didn't like how the author chose to end it. It was a trope that I don't like in books. So yeah, I gave it 3 stars. I am not a massive fan of the Poppy Wars, but that's because I'm not into politics and war. So it isn't kind of like anything I'm interested in. I also read The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This was my book club pick for the month and I really enjoyed it. I did. I thought it was interesting. I would like to read the second book. I don't own a physical copy. I listened to that one on audio and I really enjoyed it. The audio reader was Christy Moreau and I got the audiobook from Audible and I really liked the accents, the different accents that she gave each grandson. So I was able to differentiate between the boys. I think if I'd have read it physically, I probably wouldn't have, they'd have probably merged into each other. But because I listened to the audiobook and the narrator gave them all different accents, they all had text and drawl, but it was slightly different for each grandson. So I was able to keep them all separate in my head. But yeah, I would like to read the second one, and I gave that one 3 stars. The next book that I read, or listened to the audio, should I say, was Black Imagination by Natasha Marin. And this was narrated by Daveed Diggs and Lena Waithe. Now, some of you may know that Daveed Diggs is one of the actors that was in the Hamilton show, and he was very popular in that show. I really quite like him in that show, and he has quite a distinctive voice. Now, I will say that Daveed Diggs doesn't read the majority of the narration for Black Imagination. The majority of the book is read by Lena Waithe, but Daveed Diggs does come in and read a couple of bits. And what Black Imagination is kind of, it's a non-fiction book on Black people's hopes and dreams for the future, I want to say. It's almost as if the author has gone to them and asked them, what are your hopes and dreams for the world? And each person has replied, well, I hope and dream for this, and I hope and dream for that. And the thing that hit me the most was that most of them, in fact not all of them, were hoping and dreaming for a world where they could walk down the street without fear of attack or racism or hate crime. And it really hit me that all that these people want is to be loved. And don't we all? Don't we all want to be loved? And I never thought in my head, there is a whole group of people who feel like they can't be loved because of the colour of their skin. Now, some of these people that were in this book were also gay as well. So they were not just Black, they were gay as well, and they felt even more intimidated by the world. And it broke my heart, because like they just want to be safe and loved. And they don't feel that because of the colour of their skin and their sexuality. And I just thought, how are we living in 2021 when we still have Black people, Black gay people, Black straight people still feeling intimidated? It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. And people who are racist and homophobic should be absolutely disgusted with themselves. I mean, I know it's sometimes upbringing, sometimes it's religion, sometimes it's what your parents have told you or whatever, but we're living in a world where we're much more open nowadays, and it's about time we got rid of that crap. It really is. Black Imagination was my book of the month. I loved it, and I think everybody should read it. It's only a 2-hour long audiobook on Scribd. Go read it, listen to it. It's eye-opening, very much eye-opening. Okay, so on to the books that I read for Becca's Bookoplothon. So I read 3. So the first book I read for Becca's Bookoplothon was Heartstopper Volume 2. This is written by Alice Oseman. I believe that book 3 is already out, and I believe book 4 is due out this year, I think. Possibly, maybe not, maybe next year. Now, I will say that when I read the first book, the first volume, it was a cute story about a boy who is out and proud. He's gay, everybody knows, and he gets bullied one day, and this rugby player steps up and says, "Oi, leave him alone," and the two form a friendship and more. And I thought it was okay. I didn't think it was amazing or wonderful or brilliant like a lot of people sang its praises. I thought it was okay, and I was interested in reading volume 2 to see where the story was going. Now, I was gifted this very, very kindly by Jessica from the book club that I am a part of. So thank you very much, Jessica. And I'm so glad that I did continue, because this story just got a darn sight cuter and more adorable. I really liked where this story went. I am more excited to carry on to volume 3 now. Yeah, I really, really enjoyed it, and I gave this 4 stars. The next book I read for Becca's Bookoplothon was The Magic Misfits by Neil Patrick Harris. Neil Patrick Harris was an actor, or is an actor, and he's been in many things. And I guess this is his hand at writing children's books. Now, I will say that as a children's book, this is probably a lot of fun for children. There are pages in here where it teaches you magic tricks, card tricks, coin tricks. There's a bit in the back that has like some little activities that your children can do. Plus, as well, throughout this book, there is a secret hidden code, hidden message. Now, I'm going to tell you that 10-year-old me would have lapped this up and been so excited. But 41-year-old me is kind of like, flip over that page. Yeah, as a children's book, 5 stars, brilliant. Like, give this to your kids, they will love it. As an adult, not so much. I do have the second book in this series, but this is very much kind of like Famous Five-ish, you know, where the kids go off and solve the crime while the parents stand back and watch them. Yeah, it's unbelievable, it's unrealistic, but a lot of fun for kids. Just not for me. I am going to unhaul this one and the second one without reading the second one, and give this to my either local library or a local school, so that the kids can read this, because I'm not going to read it. It's too young for me. It's too simple for me, and I didn't get from it what kids would. For me, it was just too young for me. So I gave this one a 2 stars, but for kids, 5 stars. For me, 2 stars. So yeah, this will be unhauled, and the second one with it, to a local children's centre or school or something like that, so they can enjoy them instead. And the last book that I read for Becca's Bookoplothon, and the last book I'm going to speak today, is Incendiary by Zoraida Cordova. This was a rollover from February, I want to say, and I loved this book. This book was 5 stars. It was incredible. I loved it. We were straight into the action. Brilliant. No dithering about. I've seen some comments on this that there's no world building. I don't care. Like, I don't need to know what the world is like and what the politics are like. I just want to get straight into the action. I want to get straight to the nitty gritty. I want to get straight into the relationships. And this is what this book kind of did for me. It was brilliant. I finished this book in 2 days. 2 days. And this book was 466 pages. So this and Law are pretty much the same length. 2 days, 10 days. Well, no, 2 weeks. 2 days, 2 weeks. So I loved it. I lapped it up. When I finished this book, I was thinking, is it a 4-star? Is it a 4-star? And I thought to myself, could there have been anything more in this book for me to love it? And the answer was no. This book couldn't have anything else in it for me to really love. Now, I was trying to read this in time to order the Fairy Loot special edition of the second book, which I cannot for the life of me remember what it's called at the moment, but I will put it on the screen for you. It's sold out. The Fairy Loot special edition sold out. So now I'm just going to have to order the normal edition, but I am going to order it because I want to know where this story is heading. I believe it's a duology. I do believe it is only a duology, but I love it. I absolutely love it. 5 stars. Yes. So that is that. We ended on a high. So that is all the books that I read in March, all 16 of them. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please like, comment and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.